So, hi, Reagan. Thank you so much for joining me today here on my YouTube channel. I really appreciate you taking your time to do this. And to all
Absolutely.
our viewers out there, thank you so much for tuning in. I know you're going to love this interview. Reagan is amazing, and I can only recommend go follow her on her social media. I will link to that in the description down below, of course. But let's just get started. Hi, Reagan.
Hi, glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I'm so pleased that you were willing to do this. Um,
Absolutely.
why don't we start by you telling us just a little bit about yourself? Like, who is Reagan?
Who am I? Obviously, my name is Reagan. I'm 25, and I live in Florida, so Florida, USA. So it's pretty nice weather here right now. I'm married. I've been married to my husband for over 3 years now. We celebrate our anniversary in August. And I live here in Central Florida with my three cats and my husband, obviously. Yeah, other than that, I run, like you said, the Instagram page. That's kind of my main hobby. And other than that, just trying to stay as healthy as possible.
Yeah, yeah, that's so important, especially, well, for everybody, but especially for people with chronic illness.
For the
Trying to
full-time
be
job.
healthy is so important because our bodies really need
Absolutely.
help to
All the help they can get. Yes.
exactly, yeah. So, I know our viewers, of course, wants to know about your journey with chronic illness.
Mhm.
So let's start by what are your diagnoses?
So my official diagnoses are POTS, that's postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, chronic migraine syndrome. We're halfway to a diagnosis for Sjogren's syndrome. I tested positive for that. We just have to do a couple of tests to clarify it, like what the level is and everything. I'm also diagnosed with scoliosis, and I think that's it for right now. But we're working on potentially two or three more potential diagnoses, so we're not sure about those yet.
Wow, that's quite a handful, I'll say.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's quite a handful. Yeah.
yeah.
And you mentioned a lot of diagnosis, of course, as you say.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the POTS or POTS, POTS,
Mhm. Tough.
is the one you advertise the most on your,
Yes,
or
that's
if you can say that, on your social
yeah.
media.
I advertise. Yeah, no, I guess that works. Yeah, I'm not really sure how to word that, but
Yeah,
yeah. So POTS is kind of my main focus because that's kind of the one that affects my life the most. It's the
yeah,
most prominent diagnosis, and it's also the diagnosis that kind of started this whole journey. Like,
yeah.
if it wasn't for the POTS, I probably wouldn't be aware of the other things that are going on. So that's kind of my main focus.
So that's, yeah. And personally, before I started following you, actually, I didn't know
Mhm.
what POTS was. I had no
Oh,
idea
oh,
that was a
okay,
thing. And I
okay.
think I'm probably not the only one who has no idea.
No.
So I was thinking maybe you could just tell us a little bit about what is it?
Absolutely, yeah. So you're not alone. Most people actually have never heard of POTS, which is it's really crazy because there's about so POTS is one of 15 separate diagnoses under the umbrella of what's called dysautonomia. So basically the parent diagnosis is dysautonomia, but there's 15 different versions of it.
Wow.
And there's about 7 million people have some form of dysautonomia worldwide. So it's not rare to have dysautonomia. And so it's kind of crazy that literally no one knows about it unless they have it or they know
Mm,
someone who has it. So
yeah.
I didn't know what it was
Yeah.
before I was diagnosed. So I was like, the doctor came in, they're like, I think you have POTS. And I'm like a flower
Yeah.
pot? Is that what you're talking about? Like what? um, so it is like unheard of, which is I think is crazy. But basically, dysautonomia, that umbrella diagnosis, is a dysfunction of the autonomic nervous system. And so the autonomic nervous system handles basically anything that you don't think about. Your breathing, your heart rate, your tear ducts, your temperature regulation, just so many things. There's so many little things that we don't know about. They're just happening in the background. So anything that's going on in the background is what's affected by this autonomic nervous system dysregulation. We don't know, like, there's really, honestly, for the amount of people who have POTS, there's really not a lot that's known about it. Like, we don't know specifically what causes it. We don't know specifically what could cure it. We only know, like, the things that kind of help it, you
Mm.
know, depending on each individual case. But for my specific diagnosis, the POTS, that's the specific, form of dysautonomia. It's postural orthostatic tachycardia, which means a lot of people describe it as being allergic to gravity, which we're not allergic to
No.
gravity, but it's just how it feels.
Yeah.
Our bodies do not like being upright. Like they're most optimal at a laying down position. And the longer that we are either sitting or especially standing, the blood flow, because the heart rate, because like the autonomic nervous system is not communicating properly with the heart, the blood flow is affected and the heart will start to race. And we can go, like, if we're just standing there, a lot of times if you like have a more severe case of POTS like I do, if you're standing still, your heart rate could go up to 180 or 200 plus beats per minute. Like, it races out of control
Wow.
because there's just no regulation there. Like, there's no communication between the nerves and the heart. So what happens then is when your heart races, the blood is not flowing properly because it's not pumping optimally in order to get the blood from your head to your feet and back up again. So what'll happen oftentimes is that'll cause you to become lightheaded because you're losing blood flow to your brain, and a lot of the times it'll cause you to pass out. So, for me specifically, I have a more severe case, but I'm also on a medication that's kind of helping to bring the heart rate down a little bit. But I currently am not able to stand at all just because my heart is still in that place where it like will freak out and I will start passing out if I stand up. So a lot of POTS patients actually do, but I use a wheelchair just
Yeah.
for that specific cause. And when it comes to POTS, like there's different like treatments that they're working with, but most of it's experimental. Like the medication I'm on right now is considered experimental. Like they don't know why it helps the POTS. They just know that it does, so we go with that. Um, and other than that, just they recommend like crazy hydration,
Mm.
and salt helps to kind of helps work with the blood flow. So they say have a lot of salt and a lot of sodium in your diet. And then they recommend like certain physical therapy. Like I'm actually at a point right now where I'm just starting physical therapy at home. So it's like, we're still working in that journey, but it's a life-changing diagnosis.
Yeah, it sounds very invalid. Is that what you call invalidating? And I'm gonna say no. It's
It,
because I'm
it's
trying to
it's
say it in Danish and English. That's the problem.
Oh no, you're totally fine. It's all encompassing. Like it encompasses all your life,
Yeah,
basically. It just
yeah.
changes everything. No, you're good. I get it. I'm an English major, so I'm like, you're totally fine. I can help you.
It sounds like something that, yeah, you kind of have to get used to, right? Because it becomes a different life quality, and you have to figure out how to live in that
Yeah, it's
all
night and
over.
day. It's a completely different life than what I had a year ago. It's just,
Yeah,
well, actually, a little more than a year ago because we've been dealing with this for a long time now. So probably a
yeah,
couple years ago.
yeah. And the physical therapy, you're mentioning the physical therapy, is that something that will potentially help you eventually be able to stand up again and walk?
That's what we're hoping.
Yeah.
So, with the lifestyle changes I've implemented and the medication that I'm on right now, I'm able to sit up. So if we had done this 6 months ago, I would not be able to be sitting up right now. I was flat on my back, couldn't even like if I moved my head, my heart rate went up to 180. Like it just my system was so dysregulated that it saw any movement as a threat.
Wow.
So I mean, so far we've done a lot of progress with the hydration, the sodium, just the lifestyle changes, pacing myself, knowing like I'm very in tune with my body now. So if I start to get lightheaded, I'm like, oh, lay down. I
Mm,
know it right away. So I haven't gotten to a point yet where I've actually passed out, but like I know when it's coming and I know how to
mm.
catch it real quick. So physical therapy, right now I don't have a physical therapist. We're looking into that. I do really want to get like connected with a specific physical therapist who knows POTS, which
Mm.
that's rare because a lot of people don't know
Yeah.
POTS.
Yeah.
So that's a challenge. Right now I'm just doing exercises at home. They recommend, so I do exercises from my wheelchair. I have like a bicycle pedal type machine where I can just work to strengthen the muscles in my legs because
Mm.
my legs are fine. They work.
Yeah.
So, but what happened is because I've been in the chair for so long due to the heart problems, my legs have become deconditioned. So like the muscle, there's no muscle there anymore. So right now we have to work on like rebuilding my leg strength to kind of help the muscles constrict and help the blood flow as much as possible. The goal is to be able to, at the very least, to be able to stand and walk like within my apartment, like walk
Mm.
to the bathroom or the kitchen or the bedroom. Um, that's the goal. A lot of POTS patients can totally like stand, walk around. They don't have to use a wheelchair. They just have to like be aware of like their heart rate, like we monitor with our watches, or like a pulse oximeter. Um, they have to be aware and they have to like sit down a lot, you know what I
Mm.
mean? So a lot of people aren't to the point where they have to use a wheelchair full time like me, but I do like we don't know
Mm.
how good it's going to get. We're going for the best case scenario, but we
Yeah.
don't know if that's going to be just walking around the apartment and I have to use the chair everywhere else, or if it's potentially using the chair full time
Mm.
permanently. We're not at a point right now where we actually know what's going to happen with that.
No, that's quite a journey, and it's like a long journey as well. Like it's gonna take a long time
Yeah, this is
to
not an overnight thing.
no.
It takes years. In
Yeah.
almost every case, it takes years to figure
Yeah.
out how good are we going to get this, or like how much do we have to like learn to adapt with.
Yeah. And I can imagine that if you start being able to walk again, you're gonna have to keep training it. You can't just stop. You have
Yeah.
to keep doing exercises to make
Yeah,
sure you keep it
exactly.
up, right? Yeah. So it's like lifelong treatment,
Yeah.
basically.
No, it is.
Yeah.
It's like I'm going to become a workout fanatic permanently, you know. It's like I don't really have a choice. Like that has to be
Yeah.
your hobby.
Yeah.
Which it's good. I mean, it feels good to be able to finally do some
Mm.
exercises. And of course, like it does cause my symptoms to flare, which I have to like, take the next day to rest and then come back
Mm.
at it. So you really it doesn't look like a workout journey for any like healthy,
No.
able-bodied person. You have to adapt. It's very specific for every single individual. So
Yeah.
I'm still learning my limits. I'm like, you push the limits too far and you're like, well, I'm not going to do that again.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it's lifelong. It's
It's like
continually learning what your body can do
yeah.
and how far you can go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Hmm.
I mean it's amazing that
Living
you
your life.
keep so and I know that sometimes it's a little bit annoying to hear, but it's just amazing to see how positive you are, and you're just a warrior. You're really trying, and I love your Instagram so
Oh,
much.
thank you so much. I love like my Instagram is one of the things that keeps me going.
Yeah.
Honestly, I started it. If do you want me to jump into kind of the Instagram, or did you have other things you want to talk about first? Because I could talk about the Instagram all day.
Okay, let's save that for a moment then. If you can talk about
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say like I know I can see myself just heading down that path, and I'm like, wait a minute.
it. I wanted to talk a little bit about when you realized that something was wrong. When did you start realizing, okay, I'm actually maybe I should see a doctor. There's something that's not quite right. Like, how did that
Mhm.
happen? How did the symptoms start? You said it a little bit over a year that you started your journey.
So basically, I didn't know I was sick at first.
Mm.
So this all started, we're like 99.9% sure that COVID either caused this or like kind of if this was like dormant in my system, it brought it out. So
Mm.
basically, I didn't know I was sick. I had COVID last August. And after that, like I had it really bad. I was out for like 3 weeks. I was sick. And then after basically I was, fine. I didn't have COVID anymore. I was really tired, like all the time. And I figured, I'm like, oh, I just need to work out more, or I have to eat healthier, or I just have to fix my lifestyle. But
Yeah.
like the more I tried to fix my lifestyle, the worse I felt. And there were days where I would just be like sitting here, I'd be like so tired. I'm like, I can't, like, and I'm like, am I just lazy? Or, your mind tells
Yeah,
you a bunch of
yeah.
crap, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So that was really frustrating for a while. And I felt like that from August all the way until March. And I was like, okay, I just got to push through it. I got to keep going. Even if I'm tired, I got to push through it. So I kind of lived with that mentality for a long time. And then in March, so March 25th, never going to forget this. I had gone out. I remember that day so vividly. I had dropped my cat off at the vet because they had to have like a little operation done. And I had gone to Starbucks, and I work remotely, so I'm always able to like bring my laptop, and I'm like, oh, I think I'll go work at Starbucks today and get myself a coffee and everything. And I was there all morning. I felt just fine. And then I like stopped at the store, and I came home, and I had called my husband. It was about 12 o'clock, and I called my husband because I'm like, all right, what do you want for lunch? And I was just talking to him, and then all of a sudden, like I was fine, and then all of a sudden my body just stopped working. Like I was holding like the phone, and the phone dropped. And my legs went like jelly. My arms were weak, and I just kind of fell into a chair. And I'm like, I'm not okay right now. And the room was spinning. I felt like I was like passing out, like the room was going dark. And I was like, am I dying? Like I thought I was having a
Yeah.
heart attack. Am I having a stroke? I don't know what it is. And we call my husband. I called my husband. He came home, and he brought me. And like by the time he got home, I wasn't able to stand. I was just like every time I went to stand, my body was just falling on the floor, like I was a rag doll. And so he basically carried me into an urgent care that like is across the street. We have an urgent care across the street. Um, and I went in there, and they were like, we have literally no idea what's wrong with you. So they sent me to the ER,
Mm.
through like they or had an ambulance come, they brought me to the ER, and I was just like, I was panicking. I'm like, I literally thought I was dying. And so I get to the ER, and they said, you're just having a panic attack. It's just anxiety. There's nothing wrong with you. And that started
Wow.
our great journey of having a lot of doctors tell me that. So they gave me this anxiety medication. They sent me home with it. I started taking it, and I started feeling worse. Like now we're to the point, like 2 days later, we're at the point where I can't leave my bed. Like, and for some reason, I never thought to check my pulse. Like, I
Yeah,
just thought it was because I felt all the symptoms in my head because I was so dizzy. I thought it was a
yeah.
head thing. I didn't think it was a heart thing. Um, but I just know that every time I moved my head, I was like, whoa, like spacing out, like feeling like I was going to pass out. So, yeah, so my husband's like, yeah, you're not okay. Like, we thought, is it the flu? Like, what is it? But he's like, you're not okay. So we go back to the ER, that same ER. They're like, no, you've got anxiety. There's nothing wrong with you. And so I pushed. I'm like, no, there's something wrong
Mm.
here. I need to be admitted. I need to go to a bigger hospital because this hospital's really tiny. They really didn't have a lot of resources. So we pushed them, and they were like, okay, fine. I guess we can transfer you to a bigger hospital across town, like an hour away. So they transferred me by ambulance at 4 o'clock in the morning and brought me to a different hospital. I was admitted in that hospital for 9 days. And at the end of the 9 days, they did a bunch of tests. I kept getting worse. At this point, by the end of the 9 days, I couldn't even eat. I couldn't even sit
Wow.
up to eat food. I was barely like my husband was like spoon feeding me applesauce because I'm like, anytime I tried to do anything with my body, everything freaked out. And so I was like, I couldn't leave my bed.
Wow.
Um, and by the end of the 9 days, they came in and they're like, this is all just anxiety. Like, this is just anxiety. You are perfect. And they literally said, like, you can stand up, you just won't.
Oh
And
my
I,
God.
yeah, I'm not, I wish I was kidding. And I have
Oh
it
my
in
God.
writing too, because they wrote up all the notes, and they're like, yeah, the patient can stand up, she just won't. And I'm like, they're
Oh
like,
my,
she needs to see a psychiatrist. And I'm like, what is going on? Like,
oh my God, that's insane.
it's totally insane. Like, it literally sounds like a movie. It's like, no,
Yeah.
this didn't happen. But I'm like, it happened. So they discharged me. They literally put me in a wheelchair, wheeled me to the front door, and they're like, and I'm like, I can't hold my head up. I'm like a freaking limp doll in this chair. And they're like, okay, you're fine. Try some yoga. They literally said, try some yoga, try some breathing exercises. And I'm like, I don't think I'm dying.
Oh my God, I'm shocked. Oh my God.
Honestly, and if you'll see on my Instagram page, I talk about medical gaslighting a lot.
Yeah.
That's why. That is why, because I'm like, I have been there and I remember I was freaking out. And of course, yes, at that time, I was experiencing anxiety because
Of
of the things that
course.
were happening in my body.
Of course.
So I'm like, of course I'm anxious, but that's not what caused this. I was at Starbucks. I was fine, like,
Oh my
Um,
God.
so after that, my husband brought me home, and I will say, the worst part of all of this is we had a third floor apartment and no elevator. That's where we lived. So my husband, like, we got home, I'm
Oh,
like, I can't even stand, forget, walk up those stairs. He was like, no, we're not doing this. So he just picks me up and carries me up 3 flights of stairs to bring me home. Like, he's like, no,
oh my
we are
God.
not doing this right now. Like, so what happened then is I came home and we were just there for a day because I'm like, I don't know, we didn't know what to do. And what happened then is everything got way worse, because one of the things that POTS affects is your digestive system. Because if you don't have proper blood flow to your
Yes.
digestive system,
Yeah.
it stops working.
Yeah.
Because you need a lot of blood flow to digest food and to get that through your system. So I developed an infection in my GI system that caused me to be in like excruciating pain.
Oh my God.
And I started getting sick, and I was like, it just, everything got worse. So at that point, my husband called 911 because
Yeah.
he's like, I don't even know what to do. Like, I couldn't even get out of the house at that point. I was literally like stuck. And the paramedics came, and they were like, okay, where do you want us to bring you? And we're like, anywhere but that other hospital.
Yeah.
Like, don't bring us to that hospital. I don't
Yeah.
care where you're gonna go. Don't go to that
Yeah.
hospital chain. So we avoided the whole hospital chain, as a
Mm.
whole. So they brought me to totally separate hospital. And when I got there, I got into the ER, and like the doctors didn't know what was going on. They didn't know what was going on either. But I got this wonderful doctor in that ER. And I remember I just kept telling him, I'm like, please don't send me home. Please don't send me home. I
Oh.
don't know what's wrong. I'm really scared. And he was like, why would you say that? If you can't stand up, I can't send you home. Like, that's
Yeah.
like, I could get
Obviously.
my license taken away if I send you home when you can't stand up. And I started crying. So I'm like, well, they sent me home at that other hospital. And he's like, yeah, they shouldn't have done that. And every single person at that hospital that I told my story to was just as shocked as you are.
Yeah.
They're like, and these are like doctors and nurses. They're like, how could they like, how are they a doctor? How are they doing
Yes.
this? So they were wonderful at that hospital. They admitted me for another, I want to say like 6 or 7 days I was there. It was night and day. They were amazing.
Oh, great.
So after we did some tests, and they were like, well, your heart is structurally fine, your brain is structurally fine. And I saw a neurologist, a cardiologist, and they finally figured out that what I had been experiencing was POTS. And I'll never forget the day the cardiologist came in the room. He's like, have you ever heard of POTS? And I'm like, no.
Nope.
He was the sweetest, sweetest man. And he explained that not only did I have a severe like POTS flare up that had been going on for weeks at this point, because it had been about, I want to say 2.5, 3 weeks at this point that I'd been dealing with it, in and out of hospitals, back and forth. And he said, not only do you have a severe POTS episode, but something that is very, very, like, it almost always shows up alongside POTS is chronic migraines, and like severe chronic migraines, because the blood flow is
Mm.
messed up to your brain. So that's
Yeah.
how your brain reacts when it doesn't have enough blood.
Mm.
So I had been experiencing what's called a silent migraine, which means you have every symptom of a migraine except pain. Like, your head doesn't hurt because it hasn't reached the brain stem, it
Yeah.
hasn't reached the pain receptors. But I was experiencing all of the most severe migraine symptoms, which are actually almost identical to a stroke.
Wow.
So it had basically felt, I hadn't had a stroke, but I had felt like I was having a stroke for 3 weeks.
Mm.
Because
Wow.
like, like the limbs go numb and you get the dizziness and everything. And so they did this. They had to do this medication infusion like at the hospital for 3 days to get the migraine away because that's how bad it was. Like, I was literally I don't remember most of those 3 days because I was so heavily medicated.
Wow.
Like there's entire moments, like I know my husband would put movies on in the room and I know recently we were like, he's like, oh, do you remember that movie? And I'm like, I've never seen that movie before. He's like, yeah, you did. You
Wow.
watched the whole thing. He's like, you reacted to it too. You talked about it. And I'm like, I don't remember
Wow.
Um,
No, it's,
so at that point, yeah, at that point, after I was at least stabilized, they sent me
mm,
home. And, from that point on, I waited to see specialists, and then
mm.
that's how the journey kind of continued. But yeah, it
It
was
was
really crazy.
a long journey. I mean, you said you had COVID in August, and then it wasn't until March that you actually sought help. And then
Mhm.
when,
And
and then
then
it went
after
how
that,
long from when you saw a doctor the first time till they diagnosed you? How long was that?
so April, May, June, almost 4 months.
Wow.
Because they said that, and this is kind of like, the hospital treated me great, but the medical system still has a lot. There's still a lot of improvements they could do because I should have seen a specialist long before I did.
Yeah.
But they said that like, no, the specialist isn't available until the end of June. So honestly, I was stabilized, but
Wow.
I still couldn't sit up. I still had the heart problems because they didn't have me on any medication. They had just said, okay, take salt and electrolytes and stuff like that. So I went home and I laid on the couch for 3.5 months.
Wow.
And I didn't go outside. I actually, unfortunately, I had 2 or 3 other ER visits because my symptoms flared up so bad. I had to go and get fluids and everything. So I really got to know the local paramedics very
Yeah.
well. They were every time they came, they're like, they were so sweet though. They were so sweet. They made me feel so safe every
Oh,
time.
that's
Like
good.
these
Yeah.
2 paramedics every time they were so sweet. But yeah, so I laid at home for 3.5 months, and
Wow.
then we ended up going to an electrophysiologist, which is a specialty form of cardiology.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he gave me a medication that helped me out. And that was a whole journey too because he ended up overdosing me on the medication, and
Yeah.
uh, recently we dropped him because he wasn't doing a good job. So
Mm.
we're looking for a new cardiologist right now.
If anyone
So
is know of a good one in Florida. Yeah.
the cardiologist, because what happened was my medical team was a cardiologist and an electrophysiologist. The electrophysiologist is, he's the one we dropped. But my cardiologist was literally the sweetest man in the whole world, and unfortunately, he passed away a few weeks ago.
Oh,
So I'm like, the one man I felt safe with passed away. So it's
oh, that's
it's
so
been a
sad.
crazy journey, but he's honestly what changed my entire journey is that man because he's the one who diagnosed me. If he hadn't known POTS and he hadn't diagnosed
Mm,
me, I might not still have a diagnosis
yeah,
because it takes some people years to get a diagnosis,
yeah,
and if it wasn't for that one man, I might not have one.
yeah.
So a lot of good came out of this journey, but it's been a roller coaster,
It
definitely.
sounds like it. Oh my God, I can't even imagine just not, being able to stand up and just lie in the bed and like just not be able to
Yeah,
do anything. I mean, something that's so hard to understand, right? Unless you try.
it really
Yeah,
is. That's why I'm like, I had my quarantine. I had it.
yeah,
Like, after a long time, I get it.
yeah,
But yeah, that's why I think that's also a huge contributor to why I'm very positive now because I'm like, I'm sitting up. I couldn't do that a few months
yeah.
ago. So I mean, I'm not where I want to be, but I'm definitely not where I was. So it could be a lot worse. So
Yeah, yeah, that's
mhm,
true. I obviously also tried being very, very sick. And it doesn't take
mhm.
a lot for you to be like, wow, I'm feeling better. Even though other people, if they had the symptoms, they would be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
This
they
is
would be in the
horrible.
ER, but I was celebrating. Yeah,
Yeah. It's like, oh, I'm a little bit better.
right.
Yes. It's so true. It's so true. So you mentioned being gaslighted by the doctors. And
Hmm.
that is also a topic you talk a lot about on your social media. And I think that's a really important topic because it's happening way too much. There are way too many people out there who are being gaslighted. So
Exactly.
maybe just for the viewers who haven't heard this term, could you
Mhm.
just, sorry, explain shortly what
Yeah,
it
of
is?
course. Of course, yeah. So, gaslighting by itself is a very common term, especially in our generation. Like, it's kind of something that there's a lot of more awareness, than there was in previous generations. So, to gaslight someone, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's to gaslight someone is basically to manipulate a conversation to try to manipulate their thinking or kind of make them second guess themselves. And it's kind of like anyone, like if you've ever felt like someone has made you feel like second guess, like, wait, maybe I'm making it up, maybe I'm being too much, maybe I'm crazy, maybe it is just anxiety, so like, your reality, the reality of what's going on. But someone can basically try to convince you that you're wrong, about your reality.
Yeah.
And I've experienced that a lot in life, not just with doctors, but also with family members, previous people I've known in my life. Um, it's just a way of manipulation through trying to convince them of a different reality, like as if, like, a good example. Sorry, I'm trying to, like, it's hard to put into
Yes.
words.
Yeah,
Like,
it's okay.
unless you can just start gaslighting. What I mean? It's like it's hard. But basically, it's like, say you had a conversation with someone, and then a few weeks later you bring it up. You're like, well, hey, do you remember, like, when you said this and how that kind of made me feel? And they're like, I never said that.
Mm,
That never happened. I don't
yeah.
know. Are you remembering this wrong? Are you okay? And they
Yeah.
just start asking you those kind of, like, that's gaslighting, because you're like, I know what really happened, but they're trying
Mm,
to make you question it.
yeah.
Um, so that gaslighting, unfortunately, is very common.
Mm,
It's seen in a lot of parent-child relationships, a lot of like couples. It's very toxic.
mm,
Um, in the medical community, it's very, very common. Like you said, it's crazy common, to have doctors gaslight you, or any medical staff, really. It's mostly doctors. I've had a few nurses, but nurses are generally a lot better. I've had a lot of great nurses. But you can, like, they're just like what I had told you. I knew that there was something physically wrong in my
mm,
body, and I told the doctors that. And there was evidence of it too, with my heart rate, because you could see the pulse going up. And there's like, no, it's just anxiety. And so when they completely dismiss the
mm,
reality of what you're going through, in saying, basically, I know more about what you're going through than you do.
mm,
And just because I have a medical degree, you know, I get to kind of walk all over you. And that's very common with POTS. Like, the statistics are, I believe, 80 to 85% of people who eventually get diagnosed with POTS have been told that it's anxiety or some other mental, illness. Basically, they're making it all
wow.
up. It's all in your head.
Yeah,
The term
wow.
"it's all in your head" is heard by almost every single POTS patient.
Wow.
It's, yeah. So, and it's not just with POTS either. It's seen very often, and sadly it's seen a lot more often with women and minorities, that they don't take you seriously. They think
Mm,
that you're being hysterical. They're like, oh, well,
yeah.
it's just, she's okay, she doesn't think she's okay. It's seen a lot in the female, the reproductive health industry, with OBGYNs.
Yeah.
I know I've been gaslit by them as well. They just, anytime, and I've seen it. I mean, honestly, I'm a woman, and I've gotten it a lot more than my husband. And my husband has been in, and he knows this too. He fully will say, like, wait, why didn't they treat you the way they treated me? Um,
Wow.
like, there was a time recently with the electrophysiologist that we recently dropped, where I called up and told him I was having a lot of chest pain, I was concerned about. And they were like, "Well, we can't do anything for you. If you feel like it's that bad, just go to the ER." But I know the ER can't help me with this. So they're like, "Yeah, just it's good. It's good." They brushed me off. I told my husband that, and he's like, "Hold on." And he,
Yeah.
he calls the cardiologist and says the exact same thing I said. And I had an appointment in 2 days because he's the
Oh
one.
my God.
Yeah, so that is gaslighting. Like, that is like, based on they prejudge you. There's like a lot of discrimination. There's a lot of, like, they look at your history, and if you happen to have had like diagnosed anxiety or diagnosed mental illness in the past, they will completely ignore anything you're going through right now and just be like, oh, it's just anxiety. And that can come from just being uneducated on their part, or it can just come from, honestly, there's a lot of arrogance and a lot of egotistical behavior in the medical community. And they're not all like that,
No,
but
of course not.
most of them have been. Of all the doctors I've seen, I have only felt completely comfortable with two. And I've seen at least a dozen or more doctors.
Wow.
There's only two of them that have not gaslit me to some degree.
Mm.
Some are better than others, but it's all gaslighting. It's all dismissing the patient's reality, for the purpose of either getting you out of the office or getting you on a prescription or just, I don't have time for you, like whatever the motive is. Gaslighting is very, very real. Like I've done polls on my Instagram, just asking, hey, have you experienced medical gaslighting? It's always 80 to 90% of people are like, yes.
Yeah.
I have experienced gaslighting, and most of them, and obviously men do experience gaslighting.
Yeah.
But the majority is women and minorities. So it's
Yeah,
a lot
because
of discrimination.
obviously women, we're just hysterical.
Exactly.
Obviously. Yeah.
Well, the term hysterical actually comes from the Latin. If you know the term hysterectomy, when it comes to like the uterus and the female reproduction, it comes from that.
Wow.
So the term hysterical comes from the female, from Latin for like female health. So it literally, this is not a new thing. Yeah. These are the things you find out when you're dealing with it.
That's like horrible. It's horrible. And like you say, most of us have tried. I've tried being gaslighted as well. That ended up costing me a lot of money because I had to get a private psychiatrist to diagnose me. I went down with depression and anxiety shortly. I went down with depression and anxiety August 2020 because of, I got anxiety because of COVID. And my doctor, personal doctor, he took me very seriously. He sent me to a local psychiatry. And they literally told me I was just having a hard time adapting to the pandemic. And I was like,
that's a real thing, but that doesn't cause health problems,
Exactly. And then I went to the private psychiatry where I paid a hard-earned, saved-up money that I shouldn't have to as a taxpayer.
I'm so sorry.
And they said, oh, no, you have a moderate depression with an anxiety component. And we actually believe you have it because you also have ADD, so you're more disposed to it. Okay. So I just went on from not anything wrong with me to being, you need medication. Like,
it's always a medication, right? It's always pushing medication because we're like, okay, we'll just drug you and then you'll leave us alone. And it's like, it doesn't make any sense. And what gaslighting does, honestly, one of the biggest things that makes me upset when it comes to gaslighting is not only is it dismissive and just invalidating for patients with a physical chronic illness, but it's also dismissing for patients who do have a legitimate medical illness mental illness.
Yeah.
Because it's like they're saying, oh, it's just anxiety. Well, for someone who does have diagnosed clinical anxiety or depression, that is a serious thing. Yeah. But on the other side, I don't have that. I have a physical illness that you're dismissing, and that's horrible. So it's like you're basically just discriminating against everybody who has either physical or mental illness by saying it's just anxiety. Like I feel like they just do not understand the gravity of what they're saying when they dismiss. Patients.
I honestly, I believe that most of the doctors who are gaslighting probably don't even quite know that's what they're doing. They don't understand that that's what they're doing.
I would believe that. I would definitely believe that because I do believe there are some who do know what they're doing and they don't care.
Yeah, of course.
But I do believe, they just think like, oh, I'm looking at someone who's acting crazy. They're acting crazy. You know what I mean? And I think the root of it is just a lack of empathy. It's a lack of. It's just it's glazed over. It's like, oh, this person's crazy, so they just don't take a second to think maybe I'm wrong. And at the end of the day, that's a heart condition. That's that's the world we live in. A lot of people are like that. But when it comes to someone who you're literally putting all your trust in them for your health and your well-being and basically your survival in some instincts or in some instances, like your life is in their hands.
Mm,
So if there's someone randomly gaslighting you, that's one thing and that's horrible. But if someone whose your life is in their hands and they're telling you you're crazy,
mm,
there needs to be accountability there. And there needs to be
yeah.
accountability in the medical community that there just is not right now. There is no accountability in the medical community. And honestly, that's one of the reasons I push so hard on this, because I'm like, we need more people to be aware
Mm,
of what's going on.
yeah.
And I mean, we need people to be aware that they're being gaslighted, because some
Mm,
people just don't even, they just, like before, I know a couple of years ago, I was badly gaslit by an OBGYN. And like I should have like filed a complaint or something because of how badly this woman treated me. But I didn't know it was gaslighting. I thought it was me.
mm,
I'm like, oh, I'm overreacting, you know? So
mm,
it's dangerous how
yeah.
manipulative it can be to where you don't even know you're being gaslit. So I really like to push
Mm,
for awareness on that, because I want people to know, like, if you've been told this, that is not okay. Like, you should not have been treated that way.
mm,
You deserve better, and you
exactly.
need to go find better. And I always tell people, I'm like, if there's a doctor who's gaslighting you, don't even bother fighting it. Because if they've already
Mm,
decided you're crazy, you're not going to convince them, because you're talking to a brick wall. I'm like, drop that doctor and find another
yeah,
one,
exactly.
because it's not worth your time or your money to
Yeah,
keep seeing a doctor who's just going to keep dismissing you. So I'm just
yeah,
like, drop them hard, like, get out of here, you
yeah,
know.
yeah. It's yeah. It's weird why but I don't know why there is this, why it's like that in the medical world. It's so, I don't know how that happened. I don't
It's a
understand.
heart issue. It's a
Yeah, it's a
heart
really
issue on
hard
there. And
issue, and it's
yeah,
really
and
sad because it's, even if let's say the doctor honestly believes that it is mental, that it is
mhm,
something mentally. Even if they
yeah.
honestly believe that, then why just send people home? Then why not call in for a psychiatrist to come and have a conversation to see what the
Yeah,
psychiatrist has to say, just to make sure it's not, is it mental or not? Like,
yeah, at least
yeah,
try to help them,
yeah,
because
exactly.
okay, like I was at the point where I was just laying there and I couldn't move. Like,
Yeah,
I do not know of any case where those symptoms could have been presented and it's just
yeah,
anxiety. But say that it was, they're still experiencing a severe medical issue. Like, they're still
exactly.
in trouble. Like, they need
Yeah,
help, you know? They don't need to be wheeled out to the front and just like, see
exactly.
ya, you know?
Call a psychiatrist, let them evaluate and see,
Yeah, at
Yeah,
the very least. And
yeah,
then at that end, you need a psychiatrist who's empathetic too. And a lot of times there's gaslighting there too. So it's just like, it's a constant problem in the entire medical industry, where I believe they're so desensitized
mm,
that there's patients, and there's patients who are like just suffering because no one will listen to them. And the saddest part about that is that there's people suffering needlessly who could have gotten help. And there's also a very high suicide rate in the
yeah,
chronic illness community because they see no other way out. So this
exactly.
is this is a tragedy. This is an epidemic that just
Yeah,
needs to be addressed,
it
like,
really
on a
is.
much larger scale.
Yeah, yeah, politically, they need to and
Exactly.
educate
No,
them and stuff, like, yeah,
yeah, there's
it
there's a
really
lot of
does.
things, like, this
Yeah,
is this is important. This is more important than a lot of things that people get all hung up about. You know what I mean? Like, this is
yeah,
crucial.
it really
So
is.
yeah, it really is.
So this we could obviously talk a lot about medical gaslighting.
Oh, I can talk all day. You know, that's what I do.
So just to wrap it up, I just, before anyone gets to the comment section, of course, me and Reagan are aware that there are amazing doctors out there, amazing nurses who are
Absolutely.
listening to their patients, who are fighting for their patients. We know they are heroes,
Mhm.
but there is still a lot of medical gaslighting going on, definitely.
Exactly.
Um, so I wanted to talk to you about advice you would give people, both self-care advice, things, if they have POTS. Is there
Mhm.
any self-care tips you can give them that really helped you? But also, if they are in a situation like you are with medical gaslighting, or, in general, just your situation, and they don't know what to do. Maybe they just got diagnosed. Maybe they're still lying there waiting for a diagnosis. Like, do you have any advice for people who are in your position?
So I have so much advice. I will try to boil it down. So first off, you are not alone.
Yeah.
There's such a loneliness factor when it comes to chronic illness. Even if you know other people, there's still a loneliness factor, and your brain's going to tell you that you're on your own. You really don't have anyone who understands. Like I said, there are 7 million people with dysautonomia worldwide. Like, you are not rare. You're not alone. There's support groups, there's websites with information. If you search, I do have some of those resources on my page. I'm working to expand the resources I have. But like, definitely reach out. And I have not found one person in the chronic illness community that will not take a message. Like, if you message them and you're like, I don't know what to do. I see that you have POTS. Can you help me? I have not seen one person in the chronic illness community who will not jump on that chance to help you and give you everything they've gone through, because the chronic illness community is the most supportive community I have ever seen. Honestly, I was blown away with how many people, I'm a random stranger messaging them like, I have POTS, what do I do? And they're like, oh my gosh, this is everything that helped me. Like, I will help you. Ask me anything. Ask me the weirdest questions. Like, because like, there's a lot of things that happen with your body that are just weird and sometimes embarrassing. And it's like, no, you can be so freaking transparent with other people who have chronic illness. So please do not think you are alone, and do not isolate yourself and try to handle everything yourself, because it's so complicated, and you need help. You need community. Do not take that away from yourself just because you're like, oh, well, what if I'm embarrassed and stuff like that. No. They want to help you. We want to help you.
Yes.
So that's my number one piece of advice. When it comes to self-care with POTS specifically, the biggest things that help are hydration. So I'm talking crazy hydration. I drink about 80 ounces of electrolytes a day. So I have this massive bottle and I go through like 3 of them a day. And drink electrolytes, not water. I do not, like, I have water once in a while. I do not drink straight water because water sucks at hydrating you. It doesn't hydrate you. It's like such a myth. Drink electrolytes, like any kind of electrolyte powder, even if it has like sugar in it. I know it's not ideal to drink that much sugar, but it's better than the alternative. So honestly, I do Gatorade mostly. Like, I just drink Gatorade. It's cheaper, it's better, and it makes a world of difference. Like, if I go a whole day drinking straight water and then I go a whole day drinking straight electrolytes, it's like night and day. So that's really, really big for POTS, just to keep the blood flow as good as possible. Other tips are to increase your salt intake. Some people will take salt supplements, like salt tablets that you can just take as a pill. Personally, my body doesn't like those. So I'm unfortunately not able to take them, but if you are able to take them, do it. And it's super easy to get a prescription for that. There's companies that sell it privately. Like, you can totally do your research, ask your doctor about it. And then another thing is,
the pharmacy,
pharmacies are way, like, really, really knowledgeable. They can help you know who to ask and how to get a certain diagnosis. A certain prescription. So electrolyte, salt, and compression garments, compression socks. There's full body compression. Like, you can do your abdominal region, your arms, all of it. Compression helps. Like, that, again, night and day. Like, you'll be able to tell a difference. And then other than that, just pacing yourself. Like, your body has its limits, and if you are aware of them, if you are like very in tune with your body, you can catch it before you pass out or before your heart rate shoots up so high that you can't handle it anymore. Like, you can, like, totally be in tune with your body, and do not be afraid to say no, or to go home, or to say, I can't do this. You know what I mean? It sucks, and it hurts, and it doesn't get any easier saying no. I mean, for you, but keep the people in your life who support you and who are like I have so many wonderful, wonderful people in my life who, like, I've had to cancel major events. Like, I had to miss a wedding for one of my closest friends, and they were like, nope, stay home. Don't even be sorry. Like, I care more about you than I do you being at this event, and also, I have another wedding coming up next week, so, like, fingers crossed, I want to go to this one. But even then, it's like, they're like, hey, if you guys stay home. So don't push yourself so far that you hurt yourself thinking that you have to do that. Like, you don't owe anyone your physical safety. You know what I mean? Like, you don't owe anybody that. And if anybody makes you feel like you do, sorry, like, sorry, not sorry, and I've had people in my life, unfortunately, who are no longer in my life, who took my illness personally. And basically they were like offended by the fact that I couldn't go over to their house all the time.
Wow.
And yeah, there's some wild people in the world. I'm not even kidding. Yeah, they were like, they took it personally. They're like, why don't you ever come over? And I'm like, and this was while I was flat on my back. I'm like, I can't go to the bathroom alone. Like, don't be yelling at me for this. But those kind of people don't
Yeah.
just no
Yeah, you don't need
keep
them.
that distance, set those boundaries, like protect yourself, protect your health. You are not being selfish. You are not being lazy. You are not being unreasonable. You are protecting your health, and that is the most important thing. And if someone really cares about you, they're going to understand that. So,
Exactly.
and then the same goes for doctors. If you have a doctor who is treating you badly, nope, they don't belong in your
Yes.
life. There are other doctors, and they might be very hard to find, and it might take you a long time, and you might have to go through several doctors, but do not settle on a doctor who is gaslighting you. Like
Exactly.
it's just going to hurt you. It's going to hurt, your healing journey. You're going to be set back. You're going to go through a lot of bad experiences. If you're like me, you're going to end up on a drug that's overdosing you, and you're going to end up in the ER, and it's just a bunch of crap. So don't think, okay, well, maybe it's me, maybe I'm overreacting. Like you're not. You know your body. You know you have instincts. Trust them, because your body
Exactly.
is trying to protect itself. I
Yeah.
mean, and it feels a lot of the time it feels like our bodies are attacking us, and our bodies hate us, and that is totally how it feels. But at the end of the day, our bodies are just trying to protect us the
Exactly.
best that they can.
Yes.
So trust it.
They love us. Our bodies love us so much. All it tries to do is
They're
keep us
fighting so
alive.
hard for us,
Yes.
like
So
even through
show
the
it love.
pain. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Trust it. Listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, let it rest, let it like,
Exactly.
take care of it, like you're
Yeah.
not being selfish, you're not being
No.
lazy. Like, don't.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
couldn't agree more. It's some great advice. I couldn't agree more with
Thank
you.
you.
It's so great. And you also said, I'm a pharmacy technician myself. I don't work as one anymore.
Oh,
But like you said, they know a lot. So if you feel like a doctor is not listening, you could actually try asking your pharmacist, because often they know if the doctor is telling you the truth. People
absolutely. And
actually
I had
know more than the
someone
doctors.
trust, because they see these things, and
Yeah.
honestly, and one of the biggest problems I've had with my doctors, and this is like almost all of them, and in the ER and everywhere, is they will just give you a drug, and I'm like, well, will it react badly with the drug I'm taking? And they're like,
Exactly.
oh, that's a good question. I'm like,
Yeah.
and I've literally had medication reactions that
Yeah.
had me like, they were so bad, and I was like, I should not have been taking that drug.
Yeah.
But the doctor didn't know, so
Exactly.
definitely talk to a pharmacist,
Yes.
or I mean, there are resources online,
Hmm.
where you can actually check your drug interactions on your
Yes.
own, like
Yeah.
drugs.com. It will literally allow you to check the interactions. And oh my gosh, I have had so many close calls that if I didn't check that, I was like,
Mm.
oh my gosh, like this could have like literally led to, like,
Yeah.
it could be fatal in some
Yeah.
cases. So don't take anything at face value. Definitely double check everything. Talk to a pharmacist. Research your own, like do your own research. Don't basically. I mean, I don't want to tell you, but don't trust anybody. Like, don't just trust at face value. Like,
No.
you gotta advocate for yourself. You gotta protect your body.
Yeah, exactly. It's so important. We have to listen to ourselves and trust
Hmm.
ourselves and listen to people who have tried it, but also the people who know some,
Yeah,
educational stuff
find the
about it.
people
So
who
yeah,
know.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and if you have a bad feeling about something, listen to it, please, because that has like literally saved my life. Like, if you have a bad feeling, go
Exactly.
with it. Like, you've got those instincts,
Yeah,
like
we
trust
do.
it.
Yeah. um, so I also wanted to talk about why you share your journey. Um, and because a lot of people think it's attention seeking, I should not mention the Daily Mail. And so I thought, let's
Like,
just get the record straight here.
yeah,
Why
so
are
if
you
I wanted attention, I think I would have come up with something a lot better than this. I
Exactly.
mean, like, if
Go
I
for
wanted
it.
attention, like, pick something that people at least know,
Yeah,
like, like you could break down that argument so easily.
yeah,
Like,
it
if I
really.
wanted attention, there's a lot better ways I could have gotten it.
Yeah.
So no, it is not attention seeking. And as a matter of fact, it is very like it's very a vulnerable and
Mm,
a very authentic decision to be
yeah.
so open about because you open yourself to that scrutiny, to uneducated comments like that, to people who are like abusive and mean, and you're opening your heart, you're wearing your heart on your sleeve, you're opening it up. So it's a very vulnerable decision. It is not like, oh, I want attention. Like
Mm,
every day is a serious decision to share the new experiences and the new things that you go through. And it's an ongoing decision too, because you keep going through new experiences and you're like, okay, do I want to share this?
mm,
Um, as a person, as like just who I am, and this also lines up a lot with my faith. I'm a Christian, and I totally believe in authenticity and in not acting better and like putting on a false front. You know what I mean? Because like
mm,
authenticity is what people connect with.
mm,
It's what people understand. It is what we need authenticity. We live in such a fake world
yeah.
with, we only show the highlight reel. We only show
Mm,
the good things, and it's like we need reality. We are desperate to
mm,
know that we are not the only one going through
yeah.
what we're going through right now. And I know I was like, am I the only, am I alone here? You know what I mean? And everyone feels alone at one point. So I was always authentic about the things that I would go through because I've gone through a lot of difficult life circumstances even before the health stuff showed up. Like I've had an interesting life. Um, so I decided a long time ago to be authentic,
Mm.
just because I'm like, I'm not, first off, I don't have the energy to put on a front. And second off, I'm just like, I don't got the energy to be that. And second
Me
off, I'm
neither.
like, I tell people, they're like, well, why are you so authentic? I got the energy to be fake. Man,
It's too much
what I got
effort.
to do. You think I got the time for that? No. So yeah, I've decided a long time ago to be authentic because I'm like, how else are we going to help people if
Yeah,
we don't let them know they're not alone?
exactly.
How else are we going to make a difference if we don't let them know, like, hey, I am just as messed up and broken and
Mm,
confused and struggling as you are. Like, I'm not, I don't have all the answers. And I'll tell people that. They'll ask, like, what do you do? Like, what about this? What about this? I'm like, I don't know. Like,
mm,
I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm still learning. I'm still going through this journey. And and I've had so many people, and it's been such a blessing to see good come out of this illness in the form of just seeing so many people message on my page, and they're like, thank you for what you do. Like, I thought I was the only one. I didn't know anyone else had dysautonomia. I didn't know anyone else struggled with this. Or I've had people say, like, hey, I got a wheelchair because you recommended it. I got a wheelchair because you weren't afraid to share it. And like you weren't afraid to share your journey. So it made me feel like, brave enough to do it. And people have fought their doctors, and I'm just like, none of that would ever happen if I was fake.
exactly.
None
Yeah.
of that, no changes would be made. So I'm just like, I'm going to be real and raw and authentic, and I'm not going to apologize for it, like from minute one. And I definitely believe that God has allowed me to have the resources and the strength to do that, because of the things that I've gone through. So I'm like, I have something I can help people with.
Mm,
I'm not going to hold back. Like
yeah.
I'm just going to wear my heart on my sleeve, and then that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. And God only put on us what we can handle. And sometimes there's a meaning with the things that
There's
happen. And, I'm a firm believer in that too, that, you were meant
absolutely.
to make this Instagram and create awareness. So
I
I believe in
absolutely
that
do.
too.
Yeah, and I'm so blessed to have seen good come from it because a lot of the
Yeah.
times things happen and you don't know why.
Yeah.
And you're like, you don't see any good come from it, and
Yeah.
you're just like, why'd this even happen? But he's allowed me to see good come through this,
Yeah.
even though I'm still struggling, even though I'm still sick, and
Yeah.
I'm going to be sick to some level for the rest of my life, but there's something good coming from it, and
Mm,
it's gotten to grow, and it's gotten to change, and it's changed me. I mean,
yeah.
I started this Instagram. I started this Instagram out of actually being annoyed with the fact that I had so many people in my life who were asking for updates individually, like texting or messaging, asking for updates on what I was going through, and I'm like, man, I don't have the energy to message every single one of you. So I'm like, here, I'm going to create this page. If you want the updates, go there, and I'm going to do the
Yeah.
updates. And then I started making a couple reels because I was at home and I was doing nothing. I was just laying there. So I'm like, I might as well. And so I start doing little text posts and I start making a couple of reels and I'm like, oh man, I love this. Like I'm getting it all out of my system. I'm not
Yeah,
just holding all these emotions and these
yeah,
experiences in. I'm like, I'm getting to share it. And and a little bit in the beginning, it was just venting, you know what I mean? Because I'm like, look at what these doctors do. But the more people responded and the more people were like, oh my gosh, like, thank you. I thought I was alone. I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this the rest of my life. Like, this
yeah,
is my passion now. It just a
yeah,
passion grew out of it, trying to help people who are going through the same thing I'm going through. So, and I love it. Like,
yeah,
it's fun. It's a purpose for
yeah.
me. It's been amazing.
It is, and it's
Have
amazing to follow you. It really is. I love
you?
your content. You're so good at what you do.
Thank you.
And
So
to
are
all the
you.
viewers, like I said, I will put links in the description. Don't worry.
Yes, yes, come message, talk to me. I am bad at responding right away, but I will respond eventually. So just so you all know, I am bad at that. I tell people like it's not you.
Yeah.
It's my brain fog. I can't.
Oh yeah,
Um,
brain fog. Oh yeah. So,
but yeah, I have the best followers in the world and the best community in the world. So it's
yeah,
like if like, come follow my page, but also like look at the people who are like interacting
yeah.
with my
It's
posts
so
because they're
loving and yeah,
freaking amazing. Like you
yeah,
want to look into them too. So
yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Amazing. Um, so just as we're running out of time, I can see, but
oh no,
yeah,
again.
cool. But what's next for you? Is are you working on other social media than Instagram? A book? Where can people find you? You know, like do you have a web page? Like all those things. Are you planning an empire here for pots?
I'm like, I did not expect my Instagram page to grow the way it did. I'm like, I'm literally at 20,000 followers right now, and I'm
Wow.
like, I don't even know how or why. I'm like, okay, apparently I'm supposed to keep doing this, so I'm gonna keep doing it.
Yeah.
So right now, while I'm dealing with still not knowing a lot about what's going on in my personal health journey, I'm honestly just sticking to social media for now. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, and I'm on TikTok as well. And the TikTok's kind of like a wild page. I have chronic illness stuff, but I also have other posts that I do on there. So if you want like different content, it's on my TikTok. I do have those links in the biography in the bio for my Instagram page. I have a bunch of links in there. So I'm just sticking to the social media for right now.
Mhm.
I would like to grow this more, like maybe a website or quite honestly, a lot of chronically ill people have like a merchandise line where they do like t-shirts and fun things. I really want to do that eventually. And one of my best friends is actually a graphic designer who's already agreed to help me out when I get to that point.
Awesome.
So we're gonna have some fun. I do want to do that in the future. Just right now, like I still don't have a lot of energy, so
Yeah.
I'm trying to like I want to gain some more energy before I take on something that big.
Hmm.
Um, and then for the long-term future, I absolutely will write something. Probably a book. I mean, I was in college. I ended up dropping out of college, but I was an English major and I did used to write as a hobby and actually as a job for a little while. I did creative writing. So I've already got that background,
Hmm.
so there's no way I'm not going to turn that into something. But I definitely want to get a little further in my journey and get to that point where I have more answers and more guidance before I would like take on something like that. But in somewhere in the future, all of this is going to happen. I just don't know when.
So for now, everybody go follow Reagan on her social media, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. I will link down below once again. And but thank you so much for doing this, Reagan. It means so much to me, and that you take your
Thank
time and
you.
energy and to spend this with me. And such an amazing world we live in that you can sit in the morning in the US and I can sit in the evening in Denmark and we can talk.
It
So
is.
amazing.
Technology is a blessing. I love this.
It,
And thank you so much. And thank you for being patient too, because I know we had this scheduled a couple times and I kept getting sick. So thank you for your
that's,
understanding and for accommodating me.
of course, that's the game when we're ill, right? Like we have to
It is. And
be flexible.
unless you're Unless you're chronically ill or you're like a close family member,
Yeah,
you don't understand. But I know you understand. So
I
thank
totally
you.
do. I totally do. And thank you to everyone who's been watching. Have a very blessed rest of the day. And don't forget to like and comment and share and all those things. So, yeah, thank you so much, Reagan. And
Thank you. Thanks,
I will
guys.